Imagine spending $3,000 on a concert ticket. Not 300, 3,000. You bought it resale because the original sale sold out in minutes. You booked the flight. You booked the hotel. You arranged the time off work. You watched the set list leaks online and memorized the likely order of songs. You planned which t-shirt to wear. You told everyone you knew. For weeks, maybe months, this was the thing you were building toward, the live experience that was supposed to justify every stream, every late-night playlist session, every hour spent inside the music. And then, somewhere in the middle of it all, before the set was finished, before the moment you had been imagining, before the song you most needed to hear live, he left. The stage went dark. The crowd stood there. The energy that had been building for hours collapsed into confusion, then disbelief, then something angrier. What just happened? That question. What just happened? Why did it happen? And what does it say about the relationship between artists and the people who fund their entire existence? Is exactly what we're going to unpack today. Because the Travis Scott walkout isn't just a concert controversy. It's a case study in power, accountability, and what happens when the parasocial contract between a superstar and their audience breaks down in real time. To understand the full weight of what walking off a stage means in Travis Scott's specific context, you have to understand the economic architecture of the modern live music industry and the very particular position Travis Scott occupies within it. Live music has become the primary revenue engine of the recorded music business. Streaming decimated the per-unit economics of album sales. 1 billion streams generates a fraction of what 1 billion physical album sales would have once produced. What artists, particularly artists at the upper tier of fame, have left is the live show, the tour, the festival headline slot, the ticket. And the ticket market has transformed accordingly. Dynamic pricing, resale platforms, and the scarcity mechanics of high-demand artists have pushed ticket prices into territory that was almost unimaginable a decade ago. A floor ticket to a top-tier performer regularly costs hundreds of dollars. Premium packages with backstage access or VIP floor positions can run into the thousands. And the secondary market, the resale ecosystem that operates in the space between the official sale and the actual consumer, inflates those prices further whenever demand outpaces supply. Travis Scott is one of a small number of artists in the world who can command that level of secondary market inflation. His concerts aren't just concerts. They are immersive, production-heavy, dramatically staged events with a visual and sonic identity, unlike almost any other live show in contemporary music. The Astral World era live experience was genuinely theatrical, a world built around his music, not just a set performed in front of a backdrop. That production quality is part of why people pay so much. They're not buying a ticket to hear songs. They're buying entry into an experience. And when the experience ends abruptly, when the artist leaves the stage before the experience is complete, the transaction hasn't been honored. What was purchased was not what was delivered. That's the foundation of the controversy. But the foundation is only where the story starts. Here's why this incident matters beyond the refund conversation. We are living in a historical moment where the relationship between fans and artists has never been more economically lopsided and never more emotionally intimate. Social media, streaming, and the constant content output of the modern music industry have created a parasocial closeness that previous generations of fans didn't have access to. You don't just listen to Travis Scott's albums, you watch his Instagram stories. You follow his collaborations in real time. You stream the same playlist he curated. You wear the shoes he designed. The relationship feels personal in a way that the traditional artist-fan dynamic never quite did. And that perceived intimacy carries a hidden cost. When the relationship is that close, the betrayal, when it comes, lands harder. A fan who spent $3,000 to attend a Travis Scott show didn't feel like they were buying a service from a corporation. They felt like they were showing up for someone they had a genuine connection with. And when that person walked off the stage early, the emotional register of the response wasn't just consumer dissatisfaction, it was something closer to personal rejection. The anger that flooded social media in the hours after the walkout was telling in its texture. It wasn't the cold frustration of a customer who received a defective product. It was intimate. It was hurt. I defended him after Astroworld. I told everyone he had changed. I spent everything I had to be there. The language of people who had made themselves emotionally vulnerable to an artist and felt that vulnerability exposed. That's what makes this more than a contractual dispute. It is a window into the emotional economics of modern fandom and the profound imbalance of power that sits beneath the surface of the parasocial relationship. The background to this incident runs deeper than one bad night. Travis Scott's relationship with his live audience has always been complex, and that complexity was forced into the sharpest possible focus by the Astroworld tragedy in November 2021. 10 people died in a crowd crush at his Houston festival. The event became one of the most scrutinized concert disasters in modern history, not just because of the scale of the tragedy, but because of the questions it raised about artist accountability, event management, crowd safety protocols, and the culture of escalation that Scott had consciously built around his performances. The legal consequences were significant and prolonged. Civil suits mounted, the industry watched. For a substantial period, Travis Scott's entire public existence was filtered through the lens of that night. Every performance decision, every crowd interaction, every moment where his behavior on stage could be interpreted as reckless or careless was logged, analyzed, and critiqued. His comeback, announced gradually, executed carefully, was premised on the implicit argument that he had reckoned with what happened and was returning to live performance as a changed artist. The Utopia album in 2023 was received as a genuine creative statement. His comeback festival appearances were monitored closely for safety and conduct. The narrative of redemption was fragile, carefully constructed, and deeply dependent on the live show being exactly what it was supposed to be, which is what makes the walkout so specifically damaging. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists inside a storyline that his fan base had already extended enormous amounts of emotional credit to sustain. The people who paid thousands of dollars for tickets weren't just buying a show. They were, in many cases, making a statement, "I still believe in this. I'm still here. I'm giving this another chance." When the show ended before it should have, when the stage went dark and the artist was gone, and the people who had traveled across countries and spent money they couldn't easily afford were left standing in an unfinished experience, the betrayal wasn't just commercial. It was narrative. It was the story breaking at the exact point where it needed to hold. The turning point wasn't the walkout itself. It was the silence that followed. In an era where artists manage their public image through constant social media output, where a non-apology tweet or a carefully worded Instagram story can begin the process of narrative repair within hours of an incident, the absence of communication is itself a statement. When Travis Scott did not immediately, clearly, and specifically address what had happened, the void filled itself with speculation, anger, and the kind of social media pile-on that metastasizes quickly when there is nothing official to correct it. Fans who had defended him after Astroworld posted threads listing every dollar they had spent, travel, accommodation, the ticket itself. People tallied the total cost of their attendance and published the numbers publicly, not as formal complaints to ticket companies, but as statements addressed directly to him. The accounting wasn't financial, it was moral. This is what I gave. This is what I got. The video spread. The footage of fans waiting in an arena that was clearly winding down, looking at each other with the dawning understanding that the night was over, circulated across platforms. The body language in those videos said everything that the official statements hadn't yet said. These are people who had been let down in a way that the money alone doesn't fully capture. And the conversation that followed forced a public reckoning, not just about Travis Scott specifically, but about what fans are actually owed when they pay premium prices for a premium experience. What are the terms of that agreement? Who enforces them? And what recourse exists when they aren't honored? What this incident ultimately reveals is a structural tension inside the modern music industry that no amount of dynamic pricing or parasocial marketing can paper over indefinitely. The industry has built a business model premised on the emotional investment of fans. It relies on people caring so deeply about an artist that they will pay prices that rational economics can't fully justify. It relies on the parasocial relationship being real enough and close enough that the fan feels personally motivated to show up, to spend, to participate. The entire apparatus of modern music marketing, the album rollouts, the merch drops, the social media intimacy, the surprise collaborations, is designed to deepen that emotional investment. But deep emotional investment, without accountability, creates an extractive relationship. If fans can be expected to pay premium prices, extend creative goodwill through controversy, defend artists publicly against criticism, and spend real money in the belief that the relationship is reciprocal, then artists carry an obligation that goes beyond delivering a technically completed set. They carry the obligation of honoring the emotional contract that the entire business model is built on. When that contract breaks, when the stage goes dark before the experience is finished and the artist disappears without explanation, It doesn't just damage one night. It damages the architecture that the relationship was built on. And that architecture, once cracked, requires more than a statement to repair. The long-term consequence for Travis Scott is a question of trust capital. He has less of it than he did before Astroworld. He spent more of it on that stage when he walked off. Trust capital, unlike financial capital, doesn't replenish simply because the next album is good or the next show sells out. It replenishes through accumulated, consistent evidence that the artist understands the weight of what fans give them and takes it seriously. The fans who paid thousands of dollars and were left standing in an empty arena understand this better than any marketing team. They paid for an experience. They funded a career. They carried a story through its darkest chapter. The least they were owed was the end of the show. People paid thousands to see Travis Scott. He left. That's the sentence. It's short. It's brutal. And it's the sentence that will define a chapter of his career in a way that no amount of album reviews or streaming numbers can rewrite. But it's also more than a sentence about one artist and one night. It's a sentence about what we've built in the modern live music economy, a system that extracts maximum emotional and financial investment from fans while providing minimum structural protection when the experience fails to deliver what was promised. The fans in that arena weren't naive. They knew the risks of a high-priced, high-demand show. They knew the history. They showed up anyway. Because the music meant something, because the live experience meant something, because showing up was an act of belief. What the industry owes them, what every artist at that level owes the people who built them there, is a performance that honors that belief. The stage is a contract. Walking off early isn't a statement. It's a breach, and the crowd always remembers.